To me, there is hardly a doubt in my mind that Vivian is actually Serena Ravenlock, brought back to life somehow. The parallels and hints are innumerable, and the theory raises many questions. How could Serena have come back? Why doesn't Hugo realize Vivian is actually his sister? Wouldn't Vivian remember being Serena? Why isn't it addressed in the story? And how would this even be impactful? I intend to answer these in this video. There's honestly so much that I'm not even sure where to start, so I'll begin with analyzing Vivian herself. The name Vivian means lively or vivid, like bright vivid colors, fitting for the motif of purple butterflies and flowers. The last name she's given, Banshee, is a being from Irish folklore. A banshee is the spirit of a departed woman, usually young, who wails to warn others of incoming death and disaster. Put these two names together, and you get something like living banshee. Additionally, just listen to these quotes. The banshee may be the ghost of a woman who was brutally unalived or wronged by a specific family, who would then find a wild delight in prophesizing the death of the family's members. Others suggest that the banshee was uniquely tied to a specific family, not because of revenge, but because of love, and her cries were a warning. The banshee is really a disembodied soul, that of one who, in life, was strongly attached to the family, or who had good reason to hate all its members. Under this folkloric interpretation, banshees are not ancient Irish pagan gods living on as fairies, but the ghosts of dead family members. Sometimes the banshee assumes the form of some sweet singing maiden of the family who died young, and has been given the mission by the invisible powers to become the harbinger of incoming doom to her mortal kindred. In Vivian's teaser, we see a black bird break free from something, then immediately fall to the ground. It shows a young Vivian representing the bird as if she had died. Then we see her in the form of an actual black bird waking up.
They say, Vivian, Vivian, you need to open your eyes and tell everyone what you see in the future.
This was the reason she would have been brought back and had these prophetic powers awakened. Throughout the rest of the teaser, the bird gets rewound like a film reel, as if it's coming back to life. And her character demo is even more chock full of symbolism and hinting. In particular, this scene seems to show her as a disembodied spirit trapped in limbo, following a call back to the world of the living. After this, she wakes up on a train at twilight, and a tear streaks down her face, like when she foresees death. Yet that was a dream, perhaps of a memory, rather than a future event. The setting she wakes up in also represents a state of limbo, as a train is on its way to a destination, just as the twilight is the sun on its way to setting. This is very possibly where Vivian herself is. In Hugo's EP, we get to see what Serena looked like. It shows her lying on a bed of light purple flowers after she passed, exactly like Vivian in her demo. This is no coincidence. There are themes of duality present with Serena, particularly with the butterflies. One is a bright, vivid purple, also shown in Vivian's demo, and the other is a very light purple-white. While the purple one escapes, the whitish one is shattered by her older brother, and the pieces of it rain down on her like flower petals. First off, Vivian is highly associated with butterflies. We see them all over her skin, Iris of the Shore, and hear about them in a quality time invite with her. You go to the flower shop with her and are given two options to choose from. If you pick the former, she says this. This is a purple leaf violet, one of my favorites. These flowers don't bloom for very long. These clusters of purple leaf violets look like butterflies ready to take flight. I can't help but think, when the blossoming season ends, even though their petals seem to wither, but in truth, they deceived everyone, shedding their old form and soaring into the vast sky. Just take that in for a second. Vivian also sits across from a teddy bear with a bouquet of purple flowers at the end of her demo. Where else have we seen teddy bears? In place of Serena, when Hugo hallucinated her, placed on chairs. Now, Hugo says this about the two of them.
I've always treated Vivian like my own little sister. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but she looks a lot like Serena.
He also struggles to fully remember what Serena looked like, which is extremely understandable, given what he last saw of her.
She's been gone so long. I can barely remember her face.
In his hallucinations, he can neither see nor find Serena. Yet he remembers what his wretched mother looks like in vivid detail, despite not having seen her for longer. Serena asks Hugo to play hide and seek, repeatedly commenting on how he is looking in the wrong place and still hasn't found her, as if she's truly lost and never found a proper place of rest. Serena is like both of those butterflies, one dead and one alive. Her themes of duality are also strongly present with Hugo. His entire thing is living multiple conflicting truths at once, and he talks about this in a Trust Commission. He says, "The world is always full of contradictions yet remains unified. A cat can be both alive and dead," referencing Schrodinger's cat. And again, Vivian states that a flower like a butterfly seemed to wither, but shed its old form and soared into the sky. Just like that bird that fell, but was rewound and rose once again. As for why Hugo doesn't seem to recognize her as Serena, I genuinely think that even if he did, he wouldn't show it. He had to accept that Serena died and was gone, and the pain of her loss was probably so immense for him that he can't even begin to revisit it. Besides, he's kept several huge things from Vivian before for her own sake, including the proxy's real identity as Phaethon and his plan to fake his death. Vivian herself mentions that he doesn't really talk about his past, but that sometimes when he looks at her, she can tell that he's really struggling with something. And why would he tell her that she's actually Serena? It wouldn't do either of them any good in their current states. If anything, I imagine he'd want to let her have a new chance at life, without the burden of her past as a child of the Ravenlock family who was unalived by her own kin. Regardless of whoever she may have been in the past, or whoever she truly is, she's Vivian now. Now I want to touch on people coming back from death in Zenless. The first example we're shown of this is Justin Bringer, who was on the brink of death inside a hollow. Then, he saw a miracle, likely in the form of miasmic hallucinations, and was saved. He emerged from that hollow without a single scratch on him, and from that moment on, it was as if he was a completely different person. He was saved by the power of the Creator, with the miasma surely stripping away many of his memories. But he saw the miracle before he died, right? So it might not have been a true resurrection. Except, we have seen an instance of one. With one person. Vivian. After she sacrificed herself for the proxy, just as Serena sacrificed herself for Hugo, she succumbed to ether corruption and briefly died in Phaethon's arms. Yet the proxy was so determined to save her and reverse her corruption that they used their power to manipulate the ether particles around them and brought her back. It speaks volumes that she is the only person we've seen die and resurrect. And just as Bringer lost some of his memories and essentially became a new person, Serena could have suffered extreme corruption and lost all of her memories. Vivian never mentions a past, family, place of origin, or anything. The furthest back she can remember, she was a child drifting around, cast out everywhere because of her curse. She does not know where she came from, whatsoever. Now, before we discuss how Serena could have come back to life, let's discuss how she died in the first place.
Hugo must have poisoned her water so he could pass her!
This is the biggest hint as to her cause of death. Some lethal substance was added to her drink to ensure a spotless, clean murder method. Plus, this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. Hartman himself dosed the red liquid he gave to Hugo, saying it was a family tradition to do so. And what about Hugo's father? When Hugo came back to him, in the end, he was passed out and dead, holding a wine glass. We see this in the art here, and the game even includes the sound effect of it falling and breaking in order to draw attention to this detail.
Have you gone crazy?
Hartman is spineless, so of course he would have resorted to such a method. It's reasonable that a vile Ravenlock child could have gotten their hands on a lethal substance somehow. Even one like the drug Hartman gave Hugo, which came from a member of the Exaltists. See, the Ravenlocks have a family secret, and it could be the fact that they were working with the Exaltists to create sacrifices all along. As a Topps family, they could have even funded research facilities and visited them, similar to Alice and her father visiting one of Porzolumex's labs. Giving someone a certain amount of such a substance would corrupt and potentially kill them, as it would have contained lethal amounts of ether. You either die, somehow endure it, or transform into an ethereal from it. Both Haramasa and Vivian injected themselves with the prototype serum, began the corruption process, seemingly died, and miraculously healed from it. The drug Hartman gave Hugo was but one half of the ideal sacrifice serum, and it likely contained ether and miasma, since it gave Hugo such intense hallucinations. Yet he fought against the miasma that had amplified within him, and just as a hollow shrinks when ethereals are eliminated, he emerged alive after defeating his inner demons. Whatever caused Serena to die, her dying will was probably to protect Hugo and not let others die too. So of course she would have wanted to come back to warn him of the coming danger. If her cause of death was a poisonous amount of ether, that's something people can come back from in New Eridu. Oftentimes, it even strips them of their memories and sense of self, and may even awaken new powers within a person. This happened with Hidari, who was on the brink of corruption and death, but was saved by a prototype of the anti-corruption medicine. It contained miasma, and that awakened her abilities to see and materialize memories within a hollow. Similarly, a deadly amount of ether hit Trigger's eyes during the fall of the old capital, and ever since, she's been able to see the spirits of her departed companions within hollows, and sense death via the ether concentration within people. Both of these examples affected their eyes and granted them powers that reflected their innermost wills. See other people's stories for Hidari's case, and see her companions again in Trigger's case. Likewise, it's entirely possible that Serena could have undergone a similar event. Vivian's powers of prophecy come from the tears that she sheds, allowing her to see visions of incoming misfortune and warn others about it. In fact, the single biggest realization I had in all the time I've spent thinking about this theory came from a shot of Vivian's eyes. When she's dying, only one of her eyes are affected, and it turns into a light purple color. This perfectly mirrors the butterflies representing Serena. Pearly white on the left, vivid red-purple on the right. This was the moment that it all clicked for me. It was as if only half of her was left, like a soul split in twain. One half, her old form, having been shed whenever she first died. Now, it's extremely strongly hinted countless times that Vivian was Serena, but that doesn't mean it would truly matter. The point overall is that Vivian is who she is now. Hugo must still accept that his sister died. Vivian's strong enough as a character to stand on her own without this piece of potential lore being directly stated. It doesn't relate directly to the main story, and they can only cover so much, so naturally it didn't show up in the main story. Not everything needs to be stated or covered. If anything, both Vivian's memory and Hugo's memory are obscured, so they wouldn't be able to fully address or consider this now. And even though Vivian seems like she could have been a Ravenlock, she doesn't seem to be bound by their curse. She's now a bird who soars freely. In fact, her initial dying could have broken the chains of her bloodline, represented by the bird and her teaser breaking free. And Hugo's inner demon, when disguised as Hartman, says this:
"As long as you live, you'll never escape the mark of family."
So, by dying, she could have escaped it. To roughly recap this theory, Serena Ravenlock died due to being poisoned with ether by her older siblings, then recovered from it after having a strong reason to come back to the mortal realm, warning others of similar misfortune. The ether corruption wiped her memories, essentially making her a new person without a past. She became Vivian, who now had the power of prophecy due to the ether's effects. There are many other pieces of evidence that support this theory. Too much to cover in an already long video. If you have any questions about them, or have ideas yourself, feel free to discuss them down below. I will say that if one wishes to make more fascinating connections, look up Mistlan Shariak, the Holy Blood, and the Gem of Serenity from Honkai Impact 3rd, or Castris from Honkai Star Rail. So, do you agree with my theory? Or perhaps have an alternate explanation? Feel free to think on it and come back later if you have thoughts too. This one's gonna take a bit to process. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting. Thank you so much for giving it a watch, and have a lovely day. Goodbye.